I wanted to tell you about a very vulnerable moment when I got everything I had been chasing and realized I had lost myself in the process. I'm Cruz Gamboa, and today I'm going to be sharing my story and give you more insights as to why I created Ascend Growth Ventures. So I spent over 20 years at GE climbing the corporate ladder, and I was fairly decent at it. I was CFO of the power business for Latin America as well. I closed multi-million-dollar deals and loved the pressure of putting together complex transactions. That was sort of my training when I spent 6 years at GE Capital. Some people call me the closer because I was able to figure out how to close the hairiest, the most difficult transactions. And frankly, I loved it. I fed off of that identity. But then something happened that changed everything. My ex-wife wanted to move back to Argentina to be near her family. But GE, my bosses, didn't want to send me there because they wanted me to go to Brazil instead. I pushed and pushed until they finally said, fine. I remember my boss, Juan Galan, he said, you've got 2 years to make it work or you're coming back. So from day one, I had this clock ticking. So eventually I found my shot. An $800 million power deal. That's $800 million. This was going to be the thing that justified everything. The move, the risk, the pressure I had put on my family. So I went all in. 4 months of absolute intensity, politics inside of the company, politics outside of the company, governments getting involved, banks, people fighting over territory while I'm bleeding out, trying to hold it all together. When we finally closed this $800 million transaction, everyone celebrated. I got the promotion to executive. And a lot of people just said, man, congratulations, you made it. But they didn't know what was happening inside of me. I was dying inside. I started having panic attacks. My heart will race out of nowhere. I gained so much weight, I didn't even recognize myself. My mind started going. If you and I were talking in a conversation, I will struggle to follow the conversation because I was frankly in a state of burnout. And I even started losing my balance. Like I couldn't walk straight down the street. I thought I had some kind of disease, but I think it was more than that. My marriage fell apart. The distance with my daughter became very real. And to be frank, even though I've fixed that, I repaired that relationship, it still hurts me that I wasted so much time in not being present for her when she was growing up. But I kept grinding. I kept grinding because that's what you do when you're the closer, right? You don't quit. So I knew I needed help. So I went to doctors in Argentina because that's where I lived at the time. They couldn't find anything wrong. So I was speaking to my mom and she said she knew this doctor, which was one of the best in Venezuela when Venezuela used to have good doctors, right? So I flew to Venezuela and told my mom, just take me to him. I'll meet him. I'll meet anybody. I just want to feel better. And eventually after he ran several tests, this doctor came back to me and said something that I really I still haunts me still, I think it really, it was kind of like a turning point for me. He said, Cruz, there's nothing wrong with you. You need to fix what's between your ears. And that sentence broke something open in me. I didn't really say anything after he said that. I just kind of sat with it. And because I suddenly saw it. I saw the truth I had been running from my entire career. It wasn't the job. It wasn't GE. It wasn't the pressure or the politics or the travel. It was me. I was the common denominator in every version of burnout I had lived. The achiever who couldn't stop achieving. The fixer who had to carry everything. I have been so focused on climbing, on winning, on proving myself that I never stopped to ask if I was even going in the right direction. If that was my dream. And quite frankly, that question terrified me because if success wasn't the answer, then what was? So I started doing what most people in that situation will do, which is I started seeking. And I mean really, really seeking, not for the next promotion or the next deal, but for something I couldn't even name yet. In hindsight, it was something like peace. Maybe it was peace, purpose, alignment. I didn't have the words for it then. So I started meditating, not perfectly. It was hard at first, but I did it persistently. I picked up my guitar again, something I had abandoned for years, and I love playing guitar. And it reconnected me to a part of myself I had totally forgotten existed. I started studying Paramahansa Yogananda. If you don't know who that is basically the author of Autobiography of a Yogi, which is the only book that Steve Jobs ever kept close to him. And this is how actually I learned about Yogananda. And through Yogananda, I learned that stillness isn't the absence of movement. It's the mastery of it. I went back to the teachings of Jesus, not from a religion perspective, not from a strictly a Christian perspective, but as consciousness, loving without condition, forgiveness without keeping score. And I also started studying people like Tony Robbins. I did a lot of his books. Eventually, I found David Bayer, and his work actually hit me hard. By the way, David is my coach today. And David says that that there's basically two states. He talks about the primal state versus the powerful state. And I love using this lingo because it's really easy to understand. So primal is when you are operating from fear, control, and scarcity. And a powerful state is when you're leading from truth. And then I saw it clearly. I had been living my entire career in a primal state and calling it ambition. But here's what none of these teachers could give me. They could point the way, but I had to walk it. Transformation doesn't happen when someone gives you answers. It happens when you finally stop running from the questions. And the questions were hard. Who am I? Who am I when I'm not winning? What do I value when nobody's watching? What does success even mean if it costs me everything that matters? I didn't have the answers right away. There were days I felt lost, empty, angry at myself for wasting so much time chasing the wrong things. But slowly something started shifting. I realized that my whole life I had been seeking validation outside myself. The promotion, the title, the deal, the recognition. I thought if I could just achieve enough, I would finally feel worthy. But you know what? That's a game that you can never win because the finish line keeps moving. The real work was internal, learning to build from alignment instead of exhaustion, from clarity instead of fear, from values instead of validation. And somewhere in that process, I found my place. I took everything I had learned in 20 years as a CFO and capital markets leader, as an executive, the kind of work where you actually understand how money moves through a business, where you structure deals and read what numbers are really telling you and you actually understand them. I also got certified in scaling up, which is a methodology by Vern Harnish. And that methodology has helped thousands of companies break through growth ceilings. And I integrated all of that with mindset and transformation because that's the work I had been doing. And here's what I realized. None of these things alone were enough. Most CFOs can read your P&L, but can't really help you with the internal work that's sabotaging your numbers. Most mindset coaches can help you feel better, but can't structure your offers or fix your cash conversion cycle. Most business coaches can give you frameworks, but those frameworks don't address why you're the bottleneck in your own company. That comes from a whole different place of awareness. So I built something different, a method that integrates all three: the financial rigor and strategic thinking of a CFO, the proving scaling frameworks that actually work, and the internal alignment work that makes it all sustainable. Because here's what I discovered through my own breakdown and breakthrough. You can have all the right systems, all the right strategies, and all the execution in the world. But if you're not aligned internally, if you're building from fear or scarcity or the need to prove something, it will eventually break you or break what you're trying to build, or both. You can't scale what's not aligned, and you can't sustain what's built on burnout. I had a founder come to me a while ago. He was crushing it, but he was working 60 hours a week. His marriage was kind of struggling, his health kind of declining. Does that sound familiar? Most coaches would have focused on time management or delegation because that's logical, right? Most CFOs would have analyzed his P&L and told him to optimize operations. But I saw what I couldn't see in myself back then. His constraint wasn't external, it was internal. He was building from fear of failure, disguised as drive. Once we addressed that, once we got him aligned with what actually mattered to him, everything else reorganized itself. Within 90 days, he freed up 10 hours a week. The revenue kept climbing, and his wife told him she had his back. That's when I knew this system works. That's when I knew my breakdown had a purpose. That $800 million deal was supposed to be my crowning achievement, and in a way it was, just not how I expected. It became the breakthrough I needed, the moment that forced me to stop running and start seeking, to trade achievement for alignment, to find clarity about what I actually value and why I'm here. Believe me, I'm not the same person who closed a deal. That guy was powerful in one way, but very hollow in another. He could negotiate anything except peace with himself. He could structure complex transactions, but couldn't see his own constraint. He could lead teams, but couldn't lead himself. And today I help founders who are exactly where I was. Successful on paper, but suffocating under the weight of their own creation. And it doesn't matter if it's a little bit or a lot, because if you're making money and you're losing yourself, if you're scaling your business and your life falls apart, it's not worth it. And I can help them because I've been in both places. I know what it is. I know what it's like to close the big deal and feel empty. And I know what it takes to rebuild from the inside out. I understand the numbers and the systems and the frameworks, but I also understand the internal work that has to happen first. Today, I measure success differently, not by the size of the deal, but by the alignment that I feel with my life, with my mission, and with my values. Not by how much I'm achieving, but by how present I am. Not by what I'm building, but by who I am becoming in the process. And that journey from the corporate ladder to this place of clarity and purpose, that's what shaped everything I do now. That's what makes my approach different. And it's not just finance. It's not just scaling frameworks. It's not just mindset work. It's the integration of all three, filtered through someone who paid the ultimate price for getting it wrong. This is who I am. This is where I came from. And this is why that biggest deal became the greatest gift in my life. Not because what it gave me, but because what it took away. Everything that wasn't real, everything that wasn't aligned, everything that wasn't actually me. And what was left after all that burned away, that's what I'm building from now. That's what I bring to the founders I work with. The hard-won wisdom that you can scale exponentially without sacrificing what matters most. That there's a better way. That alignment isn't soft. It's absolutely strategic. It's the foundation everything else is built on. So that's my story. That's my place. And that's what I help others discover. Now, if this story resonates with you, if you are that founder working 60-hour weeks, wondering if there's a better way, if you're crushing it in revenue but feeling like something's missing, I've created something specifically for you. It's the Ascend Growth Ventures community, and it lives on the school platform. And inside, you can get immediate access to my scaling mini course, where we do exactly what I did with that founder I just told you about. We identify your specific constraint, the one thing that's actually holding you back, not the symptoms, but the real bottleneck. And then I give you the exact tools to break through it. It's where founders like you gather to scale without sacrificing what matters most. The link is in the show notes. So come join us and let's identify your constraint and get you to the next level of your journey. This is Cruz Gamboa, and I'll see you inside. And remember, life is good. Let's build it.